Have you ever wondered what happens to a soul when nobody cries for it? When the person has passed on, but there are no tears, no funeral, no black clothes, or sad faces left behind. It's a thought that can keep you up at night. We all hope to be remembered, to be missed when we're gone. But what if we're not? What does the soul feel then? Today, we're going to explore this deep, sometimes uncomfortable question. We'll look at what might happen to souls who aren't mourned in the traditional sense, and why that might not be as tragic as we first imagine. Think about the last time you lost someone. Remember the heaviness in your chest, the tears that came without warning. Society tells us this is how we should react to death. But is that what the departed soul actually needs from us? Does a soul feel abandoned if there are no public displays of grief? Or could it be that souls have a completely different perspective once they've crossed over? I believe there's so much more to this story than we typically consider. And by the end of our time together, you might see mourning and the afterlife in a whole new light. Let's start by considering what happens when we die. Many spiritual traditions suggest that at death, we shed our physical bodies and the limitations that come with them. Our souls continue on a different journey, one where earthly concerns fall away. If that's true, then maybe souls have a much broader understanding than we do. Maybe they can see the bigger picture in a way that we simply can't while we're still here. Imagine for a moment that you've passed on. You're no longer bound by your physical body or the worries of everyday life. Would you really want your loved ones to be consumed by grief? Or would you want them to remember the joy you shared, to live fully in your honor? I remember talking to Maria, who lost her father suddenly. She didn't cry at his funeral. She felt numb, and later, guilty for not showing what others might consider proper grief. But in the weeks that followed, she found herself talking to him while gardening, something they used to do together. I feel closer to Dad when I'm planting his favorite flowers than I ever did standing by his casket, she told me. Could it be that Maria's father's soul felt more connected through those quiet moments in the garden than he would have through public tears? The truth is, grief looks different for everyone. Some people weep openly, while others process their emotions privately. Some throw elaborate funerals, while others prefer simple ceremonies or none at all. And across the world, mourning traditions vary wildly from culture to culture. In some parts of Mexico, the Day of the Dead is celebrated with colorful decorations, favorite foods of the deceased, and even humor. Families create altars with photos, candles, and marigolds to guide souls back for a visit. There's music, dancing, and a sense of celebration. It's a far cry from the somber, black-clad funerals common in Western cultures. In New Orleans, jazz funerals begin with solemn music as the procession moves to the cemetery, but transform into joyful celebrations with upbeat songs on the return. It's a beautiful way of saying, we're sad you're gone, but we celebrate the life you lived. These traditions remind us that there's no one right way to honor someone who has passed. What matters most isn't how loudly we grieve, but how deeply we loved. Think about your own relationships. Aren't the strongest bonds the ones that don't need constant expression? The friendships where you can go months without talking, then pick up right where you left off? What if our connection to souls is similar? What if they understand our hearts even when we don't put our grief on display? Many psychologists now talk about the concept of continuing bonds rather than letting go. This means that when someone dies, our relationship with them doesn't end. It just changes form. We find new ways to maintain that connection, whether through memories, conversations with them in our minds, or living in ways that would make them proud. And here's something interesting. People from all walks of life, all cultures and beliefs, report unexplainable experiences that suggest ongoing connections with departed loved ones. A widow who smells her husband's cologne when no one else is around. A father who dreams of his child so vividly it feels like a visit. A woman who feels a reassuring presence beside her in moments of distress. Science might explain these as tricks of the mind, ways our brains process loss. But what if they're actually signs that souls remain connected to us, regardless of how we express our grief? Let me share something personal. My grandmother passed away when I was traveling abroad. I couldn't make it back for her funeral, and for years, I carried guilt about not being there to say goodbye properly. Then one night, I had a dream where she was sitting in her favorite chair, smiling. "I never needed you to stand by my grave," she said. I just need you to remember how to make my apple pie. I woke up crying, but also feeling strangely at peace. Was it just a dream? Maybe, but it changed how I thought about mourning. Instead of focusing on what I hadn't done, the funeral I missed, the tears I couldn't share with family, I started focusing on keeping her memory alive through the small, everyday things that mattered to her. I wonder if that's what souls really want from us. Not necessarily the black clothes and the somber faces, but the carrying forward of what made them who they were. Their values, their loves, their special recipes, their jokes, their wisdom. Have you noticed how some people seem to live on through others? The grandfather whose sayings are still quoted by the entire family. The teacher whose lessons shaped hundreds of students who now pass that knowledge to others. The friend whose courage in facing illness inspired everyone who knew them to live more fully. Maybe that's a form of immortality, living on in the impact we've had on others. And maybe souls are more concerned with that legacy than with how many tears were shed at their passing. There's a beautiful concept in some spiritual traditions that suggests souls continue to grow and evolve after death. If that's true, perhaps they quickly come to understand that grief, while natural, is more for the living than for the dead. Perhaps they see that too much grief can actually chain both the living and the departed to pain, preventing both from moving forward as they should. Think about your own life for a moment. What would you want for your loved ones after you're gone? Would you want them locked in grief or finding joy again? Most of us would choose the latter, wouldn't we? We'd want those we love to heal, to smile again, to find happiness even in our absence. If that's what we would want as humans, imagine how much more we might understand as souls, free from earthly attachments and perspectives. There's an old saying that grief is the price we pay for love. And there's truth in that. When we love deeply, loss hurts deeply. But maybe souls understand something we struggle to grasp, that love transcends death in ways grief cannot. Consider this. Have you ever felt the presence of someone you've lost in a moment of joy rather than sadness? Perhaps while watching a sunset they would have loved, or hearing a song that was special to both of you, or achieving something they always encouraged you toward. Many people report feeling closest to departed loved ones in these positive moments, not in the depths of grief. That suggests something profound about what souls might experience. Perhaps they're more attuned to our joy than our sorrow. Perhaps they're more present in our celebrations of life than in our mourning of death. This doesn't mean grief isn't important. It is. Grief is a natural, healthy response to loss, and processing those emotions is vital for healing. But there's a difference between acknowledging grief and being consumed by it, between mourning a loss and celebrating a life. Let's think about different ways people honor those they've lost. Some plant trees or gardens. Others establish scholarships or donate to causes that matter to the departed. Some continue traditions their loved ones started or complete projects they left unfinished. A friend of mine lost his wife to cancer. Instead of visiting her grave regularly, he volunteers at the hospital where she was treated, bringing comfort to others facing similar battles. This is how I honor her spirit, he says, not with flowers on stone, but with kindness to the living. Is his wife's soul any less honored because he chooses action over traditional mourning? I don't think so. In fact, I believe she would feel profoundly connected to his efforts, prouder of this living tribute than any amount of tears. The question of what souls feel if they're not mourned touches on our deepest fears about being forgotten. But maybe we're thinking about it all wrong. Maybe souls aren't counting our tears or measuring our grief. Maybe they're watching for how their love continues to flow through the world even after they're gone. Remember that person who made you who you are today? The one whose voice you still hear in your head sometimes, guiding you? Their body may be gone, but their influence lives on through you. And in that way, they're not really gone at all. This brings us to an important truth. The relationship between the living and the departed isn't one way. It's a continuing conversation, a dance that evolves but doesn't end with death. And both sides have a part to play. From our side, we can honor souls by living well, by carrying forward what mattered to them, by allowing them to continue making a difference through us. And perhaps from their side, souls can offer us guidance, comfort, and a broader perspective if we're open to receiving it. Have you ever made a decision and somehow known what a departed loved one would advise? That's not just your memory of them. It's their lasting impact on who you've become. And in that sense, they continue to participate in your life journey. I believe this is what souls truly desire. Not to be grieved for, but to be remembered with love. Not to cause pain by their absence, but to continue bringing joy through their memory. Not to be mourned as someone who no longer exists, but to be honored as someone whose existence has forever changed the world in ways both small and large. So what does the soul feel if it's not mourned in traditional ways? Perhaps relief that those they love aren't suffering needlessly. Perhaps joy at seeing their legacy continue. Perhaps peace in knowing they haven't really been forgotten. They've been integrated into the lives of those who love them. And isn't that a more beautiful afterlife than one where souls anxiously watch the living, counting tears and measuring grief? As we come to the end of our exploration, I invite you to think differently about mourning. Instead of worrying whether you're grieving enough or in the right way, ask yourself, how can I best honor the essence of this person I loved? How can I carry forward what made them special? How can I ensure that what mattered to them continues to matter? Because in the end, I believe that's what matters to souls. Not that we're sad they're gone, but that we're grateful they were here. Not that we mark their death, but that we celebrate their life. Not that we mourn their absence, but that we feel their presence in all the ways they've shaped us. So perhaps the question isn't, what does the soul feel if it's not mourned? But rather, how can we ensure souls know they're remembered? And the answer to that question isn't found in tears or funeral rituals, but in how we live our lives carrying forward their love, their wisdom, their impact. And maybe, just maybe, when souls see that happening, they feel something far more powerful than being mourned. They feel immortal. Let's end with this thought. Every time you live according to values someone you loved instilled in you, every time you tell their stories to others, every time you feel joy in something they would have appreciated, you're not just remembering them. You're allowing their soul to continue its journey through this world. And that might be the greatest honor of all. Think about that the next time you wonder if you're grieving correctly or enough. The soul doesn't count your tears. It follows the ripples of love it left behind. And as long as those ripples continue to spread, the soul is not forgotten. It is eternally alive in the most beautiful way possible.